Hello, I'm Christopher Kenworthy, and I'm going to show you how to put in an artificial pull focus into this shot. So you can see the foreground is relatively sharp, as is the background, and we want to make it look as though this was shot with a long lens and a wide aperture, so that this starts in focus and gradually the focus shifts to the musician in the background. So to do that, I'm going to add an adjustment layer. And then on here I'm going to add a couple of blurs. First of all, the Gaussian blur, turn that up to quite a high figure, about 25, and then I'm going to add the camera lens blur and set that to about 20. Now that's very heavy on the processor, so I'm going to switch it off for now, and we use the Gaussian blur just for reference. So to avoid having to keyframe masks or anything as laborious as that, I'm just going to use this adjustment layer with mask opacity to create the effect. So go up here, get the pen tool, and I'm going to draw a fairly simple mask around the music and the bow and most of the violin, like that. Okay, and you can see there now the background is out of focus. To save me having to draw another mask, I'm just going to copy this one. So let's give it a name first. We'll call that background mask. I'm going to duplicate it and we'll call that foreground. And then click the inverted box. That means both masks are now switched on for their respective parts of the frame. So I'm going to go up to the part of the footage here where she looks at the music, and that's roughly where we want to change the focus to her. So just click M a few times till all the mask settings come up, and you can see here mask opacity. Keyframe that. And you can see if I drag it down on the foreground mask to 0, that brings the foreground fully into focus, leaves the background like that. Now move forward. This can be as long as you want, but for as long as you want the pull focus to occur for. So I'm going to stop there just after the 5-second mark and reverse the opacities. So the background goes to 0 and the foreground goes to 100. Now when we play that through, you should see the basic effect. Okay, that's not too bad, but we want to refine it a little, because you can see that as it happens, this area, which is sort of part foreground, part background, is a bit too blurry here. So I'm going to feather the masks. Let's just give them a color each. So I'm just going to color the foreground mask yellow so we know which one we're on. Okay, then I'm going to go and get the mask feather tool. I'm going to select the foreground mask there and click when I've got the plus sign and pull out and just widen that blur into here. You can see how that's softened the blur around this area, which is exactly what I want, but it's also done it here on the paper, which is not what I want. So I'm going to click there and drag that back in. And that looks just about right. And the background mask, let's just go back to here, probably doesn't need such accurate feathering, so I'll just use the slider here, turn that up to about 40, see how that looks. That's fair enough. You could go in and be more accurate if you want, but that will probably do for the initial effect. And then when all that's done, switch Gaussian blur off and switch camera lens blur on, and although that's much heavier to render, you can see that it gives a better effect when all is done. And there you go. And with that done, you're ready to render out, and that will look like it's a pull focus from foreground to background.